We don't need to name variables with simple letters like x and y the way we usually do in math, and in fact, we shouldn't. Our principle of self-documenting code tells us we should give variable names that actually suggest what the variable is holding. When we're choosing variable names, there are two things we need to keep in mind: a set of rules and a set of conventions. The rules govern what we actually can name our variables. The first rule is that variable names can only contain letters, numbers, and in Python, underscores. They can't contain spaces or special characters. That's the problem with our first two variable names here. The first one has a number sign, and the second one has a space. Both of these will generate syntax errors when we try to run them. Python doesn't know how to read a variable name that has a $sign in it, and it doesn't know to see this as all one variable name. Secondly, variable names must start with letters. Technically, underscores are also allowed, but we generally only use those in certain situations. So that's the problem with this variable name. It starts with the number 5. That too would generate a syntax error. And third, variable names must not duplicate certain reserved words. For example, for is what's called a reserved word in Python. It means Python has a special meaning it attaches to the word for, so we can't use it as a variable name. We'll talk more soon about what the reserved words actually are. Like the others, if you try to run that line of code, you'll get a syntax error. However, beyond those rules, there are certain conventions we want to follow. The computer isn't going to yell at us if we don't follow these rules, but other people to have to work with our code might get pretty upset. The main convention, as we mentioned before, is that our code should be self-documenting. What that means is we should be able to read the variable names themselves and know what kind of data they're holding. When I see a variable name like a, or foo, or QWERTY, I don't know what it's representing. They might be integers, they might be strings, they might be times, they might be something else. If I look at the assignment statements, I can tell it's an integer, it's a string, it's an integer. But if I then saw that later in my code, I wouldn't be able to just look at the variable name and automatically know what it represents. I would have to remember what I saw earlier. On the other hand, variable names like age, first name, and cat count, I can just kind of read them and know exactly what they represent. Age is probably someone's age, first name is probably a string of characters, and cat count is probably an integer count of the number of cats somebody has. So instead of using vague variable names like A, B, and C, we might use names like age, first name, and cat count. Just by reading those variable names, we can infer what they mean and the kind of data that they hold.